Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions. Let's dive in. The front door creaked open at 8:02 a.m. Her heels tapped against the hardwood, slow, casual, almost smug. She was humming. Actually humming. The same woman who'd walked out 12 hours earlier with a bag, red lipstick, and the words, "Don't wait up." Delia didn't expect silence. She didn't expect the emptiness. She didn't expect the couch gone. The rug rolled. The framed photo of our wedding that used to sit on the entryway table? Missing. She called out my name once, then again louder. No response. Only the soft hum of the fridge. Then she noticed the letter. Not dramatic. No envelope. Just a single sheet of printer paper, folded once, sitting where her coffee mug usually goes. I'll get to that letter. But first, let me tell you what happened 12 hours earlier, before her little sleepover. Delia had stood in the doorway, fully dressed up like she was auditioning for a perfume ad. I asked, stupidly, "Date night?" She tilted her head like I was a confused child. "No," she said, already zipping her purse. "Just going to Grant's. I need a reminder of who I used to be." Grant, her ex, the one she once said emotionally exhausted her. Now he was some nostalgic mirror? I asked, "Why tonight?" She smiled. "Because I want you to know how it feels. Maybe next time you'll care before it's too late." And then she left. Just like that. She didn't take her charger. Or her wedding ring. She thought she was in control of the damage. But what she didn't know, what she never imagined, was that the second she walked out, I didn't cry. Not this time. I didn't stare at the door or scroll through old messages or call my therapist. I acted. I unplugged everything. I cleared every drawer I ever used. I carried out my desk by myself, scraped the hallway paint doing it. I left the bedroom untouched. Why? Because that was her space now. Let her keep the sheets that smelled like someone else. At 3:46 a.m., I placed the letter in the kitchen and turned off the lights one last time. No fights, no scenes, just silence. So when she walked in and called my name, she got only one answer: absence. And that letter started with only 3 words. "You finally won." But what followed? That's what made her drop to her knees. The last thing I heard before shutting the door behind me was her engine starting down the block. She didn't even wait long enough to see if I'd say anything. She didn't look back. It was like I had already been erased in her mind. The whole house echoed with a strange quiet, not peaceful, more like a museum of things that no longer mattered. I sat there for a moment, not crying, not angry, just hollow. I thought of all the little things, how she used to tuck her legs under mine during movies, how she'd order 2 desserts because she couldn't pick one, how she'd laugh at her own typos in texts like they were inside jokes. When did those things stop? I walked through the house like I was touring someone else's life. My drawers were nearly empty already, as if she'd mentally moved me out long ago. I found a box in the attic, labeled college stuff. My old hoodie, a few books, and some dried-up pens. It was funny. That hoodie had more warmth in it than the last 3 months of our marriage. I packed it anyway. I didn't need much. Just enough to walk away and still recognize myself in the mirror. By midnight, the car was loaded. I left the ring on the counter next to the coffee machine. Not to be dramatic, just to say, this was real for me. And then I wrote the letter. Not a manifesto. Not a guilt trip. Just the truth in plain sentences. "You finally won." It began, but it didn't end in blame. It ended in release. She broke something in me that night, but she also freed me. And I think deep down, she never expected me to go. She thought I'd fight, yell, beg. That's what made her return so unsettling for her. She didn't walk into an argument. She walked into a vacuum. And the moment she saw the empty spaces where I used to sit, she realized this wasn't a game anymore. This wasn't revenge. This was real. She didn't move at first. I know this because our neighbor, Janice, texted me. Said she saw Delia standing in the middle of the living room through the window, not doing anything. Just standing there, holding the letter. Janice always kept an eye on us, for better or worse. Said it was like watching someone realize they'd walked into the wrong house. But it was the right house. It just wasn't hers anymore. Not in the way she left it. I hadn't taken everything. That would have been petty. I only took what was mine. The chair she never sat in, the books she never read, the winter coat she said looked too dad-like. I left the things we shared, the TV, the bed, the plates, all reminders that I existed, but not in the way she remembered me. Not as her shadow, as her absence. An absence, when it's loud enough, feels like a scream. I turned my phone off after I left. I knew she'd call eventually, or text, or something. And part of me, the small, desperate piece still clinging to a version of us that hadn't existed in years, wanted to read her reaction. But the rest of me couldn't take more manipulation, more guilt trips disguised as jokes, more of her rolling her eyes when I expressed even the smallest concern. So I didn't wait for the reaction. I stayed with my cousin Miles, who offered me his guest room without asking a single question. We played video games in silence like we were kids again, and for the first time in months I felt like myself. Not Delia's mirror. Not her backup plan. Later that night, Miles told me Delia had posted a picture of our dog on her story with the caption, "Guess it's just me and you now." She still hadn't mentioned me directly. No apology. No explanation. Just a sad little performance for the people who only knew our highlight reel. But I wasn't angry, because I knew something she didn't. The real storm hadn't even started yet. Took her 40 hours to reach out. Not that I was counting, but I hadn't slept much, and my cousin's clock had this slow, mocking tick that filled the silence between us. When the message finally came, I expected panic, or regret, or at least a question. Instead, she wrote, "So this is how you handle things now? No, where are you? No, can we talk?" Just that, a cold, loaded sentence that somehow made me feel like I was the one who'd abandoned her. I stared at the screen for a long time before turning it face down. Miles didn't say anything. He just tossed me a soda and nodded toward the controller. We played in silence. But the moment I lost focus and got kicked in game for inactivity, I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. She didn't want reconciliation. She wanted control. And I wasn't a participant in our marriage. I was a pawn in her performance. Leaving didn't flip the script. It just made her scramble for a new scene. That night, she sent another message. This one was longer, carefully calculated to sound emotional. "I didn't actually do anything at Grant's. It was just one night. I needed space. I didn't think you'd overreact like this." Overreact? That word hit harder than any admission of cheating. She genuinely believed that staying the night with her ex to remind herself who she was didn't warrant consequences. It was emotional trespassing, and somehow, she'd convinced herself that I was the unstable one for not waiting quietly at home like a scolded dog. I typed out a reply at least 5 times. Deleted every version. Too calm, too angry, too revealing. In the end, I didn't send anything. Because deep down, I finally understood. This wasn't about Grant. It never had been. This was about erosion. About little cracks, little games, little tests that I kept failing because I thought love meant endurance. But love doesn't mean staying when someone stops seeing you. Love means knowing when to stop proving your worth to someone who already decided it isn't enough. And now, her silence felt heavier than her presence ever did. The next morning, I found myself watching the street from Miles' guest room window, not for her, but for some kind of sign that I hadn't just walked away from everything for nothing. I wasn't used to silence. Not from her. Delia's silence was always strategic. It wasn't peace, it was punishment. When she didn't get the meltdown she expected, she changed tactics. That afternoon, she posted a photo of herself at the park, smiling, holding Baxter's leash. The caption read, "Solo walks clear the mind." I wasn't in the frame, obviously. I wasn't even in the narrative anymore. It was a strange feeling, seeing someone rewrite your role in real time. For years, I'd been the quiet, dependable husband. The man behind the curtain, paying bills, fixing the broken chair legs, making sure the garbage went out before she even noticed it was full. Now I was being rebranded as the one who ran away when things got hard. As if she hadn't set the house on fire and handed me the matches. That night, she finally called. I let it ring twice. Then I picked up. Not because I wanted to hear her voice, but because I needed to stop hearing it in my head. Her tone was clipped. Not angry, not sad, just annoyed. So, is this the part where you pretend you're the victim? That line, that smug, bitter line, cracked something in me. I didn't yell. I didn't defend. I just asked, why Grant? There was a pause, long enough for her breath to catch. Then she said, I don't know. I guess I wanted to see if you'd care. Right? I said. And did it work? She didn't answer, because she knew it had, but not in the way she expected. She wanted me to fight, to chase, to break. Instead, I left. And in doing so, I shattered the version of me she thought would always stay. It was just past 10 p.m. when my phone lit up with a call from a number I didn't recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. I'd had enough conversations lately that left me more hollow than before. But something nudged me to answer. The voice on the other end was soft, cautious, familiar. Elwood? It's Tessa, Delia's sister. We hadn't spoken in over a year. Not because we didn't get along, but because Delia had this unspoken rule about keeping her family on a need-to-know basis. And apparently I never needed to know much. Tessa exhaled before continuing, like she wasn't sure if calling me was brave or stupid. I saw her earlier today, she said. She's pretending like she doesn't care. But I know her. I know when she's unraveling. I didn't say anything. I didn't trust what might come out. She told me you disappeared, that you ghosted her, that you're being cruel, Tessa said quietly. But I also know what she left out. That made me sit up. She bragged about going to Grant's, she added. Said you'd finally learn to stop being so boring. Her words, not mine. I swallowed hard, trying to keep the bitterness from rising in my throat. I'd accepted pain, but being rewritten as dull? That was something new. She said you were too soft, Tessa continued, her voice sharpening now. But honestly, I think you were the only real thing she had. Then she paused. What she said next knocked the air out of me. She told me something else. Said she only spent the night with Grant to see if you'd finally snap. But Elwood. Her voice cracked. She didn't come home right away because she didn't sleep on the couch like she said. And she's too scared to admit it. My chest tightened. I hadn't wanted to believe it. I'd convinced myself she just crossed an emotional boundary, not a physical one. But suddenly everything made sense. The delayed messages, the calculated silence, the shift from arrogance to pity. She wasn't sorry because she wasn't done justifying it. Tessa hesitated again before saying, You didn't deserve any of this. And I'm not taking sides. I just thought you should know. I didn't sleep that night. Because there's something different about heartbreak when it's confirmed by someone who didn't have to say a word. It was raining when she came. Not a dramatic thunderstorm. Just a quiet, persistent drizzle that blurred the world outside into watercolor. I was sitting in the living room at Miles' place, half watching a documentary I couldn't follow, when Baxter, yes, she let me take him, perked up. Then came the knock. Not pounding, not frantic, just two soft taps spaced out, like she wasn't sure if she wanted me to hear them. Miles gave me a look, one that said, You don't owe her anything, but still stood up and disappeared into the kitchen, giving me space I didn't ask for but appreciated. I opened the door and there she was, Delia drenched, hair plastered to her cheekbones. No umbrella, no makeup, just her holding that mug, the wifey material one, like it was some kind of peace offering. I thought you'd be here, she whispered. I didn't invite her in. I didn't say anything at all. She stepped under the overhang, out of the rain, but didn't move closer. Her eyes scanned the room behind me, the empty takeout box on the table, the folded blanket on the couch, the dog toys. Her gaze landed on Baxter, then flicked back to me like I'd committed theft. I just wanted to talk, she said, her voice trembling in that familiar, manipulative way she used when things didn't go to plan. You left. You didn't even fight for us. I laughed, quietly, not out of humor, more like disbelief. Delia, you packed your dignity into an overnight bag and left it at your ex's house. What was I supposed to fight for? She winced. I didn't mean for it to go that far. But it did, I said. She looked down at the mug, suddenly unsure what to do with it. I don't know who I am without the version of you that waited. I stepped back just enough to let the door swing. You should probably figure that out. And that's when Miles walked in, not dramatically, not intentionally, just at the exact wrong moment. Or the exact right one, depending on how you see it. He froze when he saw her. She froze when she saw him. And everything inside her face collapsed. You're staying with him? She said, stunned. No, I said, locking eyes with her. I'm finally staying with someone who doesn't expect me to be less just so they can feel more. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just nodded once, turned, and walked back into the rain. Now she wasn't the one leaving, she was the one left behind. 3 days passed after she left my doorstep without another word. No more texts, no surprise visits, no long paragraphs laced with guilt, just silence. And for the first time in years, it wasn't haunting, it was healing. I didn't check my phone every 5 minutes. I didn't rehearse arguments in my head or replay her betrayal like a loop I couldn't shut off. I just lived. I got up early, took Baxter on walks without looking over my shoulder. I sat at coffee shops and read books I hadn't touched in years. I even started sketching again. Something Delia used to roll her eyes at, calling it my midlife hipster phase. But it didn't matter. I wasn't trying to be impressive anymore. I was just trying to feel whole again. A week later, Tessa texted me. She's asking about you. Not directly. Just wondering. I replied with a simple, hope she's doing okay. I didn't ask for more. I didn't need to. What Delia never understood is that leaving wasn't about punishing her. It was about remembering myself. She played a game to get a reaction. I chose peace instead. And that's something she never learned to live with, not getting the final word. Today, I'm in my own place. Small, quiet, and entirely mine. There are no games here. No late-night manipulation disguised as romance. No emotional landmines buried in every conversation. Just quiet mornings, loud laughter with friends who actually listen, and a dog who never judges. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, I look back and realize that the best thing she ever did for me was leave first. Or at least think she did. Because in the end, I didn't lose a wife. I found a life. Thank you for listening to my story. You're watching Reddit Confessions, and if you've ever been through something similar, or if there's a moment in history that reminds you how people bounce back from betrayal and rebuild, drop it in the comments below. Let's talk about the moments that made us stronger, not the people who tried to break us.